as a local vendor, at least, we've always embraced a distribution model, and our products have always reached the market through the channel, distributor, dealer, resellers, and then obviously the customers as our most important front line of users of our products. And essentially, you know, over the years, we've built up at least 8,000 customers now, big and small businesses across a range of different marketplaces. So we like to show that in introducing the product to new regions, that these are very much established track record, very much tried and tested. To give you an idea, some of our distribution partners in the Southern African region, where we've historically been playing, are the likes of Liquid Telecom, Vox Telecom, some of the resellers, the likes of Dimension Data, Nashua, and especially now over the last year and a half, we've spent a considerable development and integration effort, having identified a market with 3CX for an integrated appliance that not just runs 3CX natively in a CPE device that would, you know, be installed on the customer premise site, but one that can also, for many markets, support an integrated range of telco interfaces. So these would be your FXO ports for analog PSTN connectivity, ISDN ports for primary rate ISDN connectivity, as well as what you'll see is, you know, a range of broadband connectivity ports. But ultimately, we are an approved 3CX OEM in the sense of what we claim about the products, what you'll see in terms of their performance and their functionality and the ease of use has been very strongly controlled and tested by 3CX, the guys in Cyprus, who from a QA perspective have approved the performance and the specification that we say about all of the products, and that the usability, the functionality is maintained, so that you can have the same experience of the ease of use and all the features and functionality, but in a real hybrid style CPE device for these markets. And important there is the support that comes with it through SciTech, through FarSouth, through 3CX. Yeah, I don't want to harp on too much about that, but that just gives us, just to give you an idea of where we're from and what we'd like to show you today. So on that score, I'll pass you back to Clint. As Mona said, our channel manager, he's the person I really hope that builds a
Perfect. Thanks very much, Grant. Yes, so it gives me great pleasure to discuss with you guys our FarSouth Networks product base. And then also just starting on today's topics that we're going to be dealing with would be the FarSouth 3CX PBX features, the product range that we have, as well as the product mechanicals. So what's under the hood, for example, what we have to look forward to. Then we will allow, as Mona says, please feel free to type your questions on the chat section. And when we get to the Q&A section, we'll definitely answer as many questions as we can. And even maybe if you want to backtrack on any one of the slides that we dealt with, please make sure that you remember which slide we are dealing with, and we'll gladly go back to those as well. Okay, so let's look at the FarSouth 3CX PBX features. As a PBX, we basically have an on-premise PBX, and basically on this on-premise PBX, we have a couple of things, couple of items that we can connect to, or we can basically intertwine with regards to our on-premise PBX, such as SIP trunks, various integrations, telco hardware, as we'll see in the next slide. So when we look at the hardware benefits which is the key features with regards to our PBX, our on-premise PBX. We take advantage of the telecom ports that we are able to support and to connect to onto our PBX systems, be it analog or be it ISDN. We are able to leverage off all of those connections to make it more versatile within the market space. Broadband connectivity via IP connection, be it Ethernet connection, via fiber or wireless technology to connect to our PBXs, that is also available. And then looking at the handsets. So there is quite a huge range of handsets, be it analog or IP based handsets that 3CX also prescribes on their website as well, which can connect onto the PBX as well. This creates a wonderful opportunity in the market space for you to actually take that existing IP handsets or whichever analog and handsets the customer has on premise, and not having to actually change those out to all IP. You can actually look forward in different slides that we have on that in which to save the customer money. So yes, on-premise device, reliable, very much reliable, as opposed to hosted, where you got all the connectivity, everything connecting to your on-site device. So that's why it makes it so reliable for the connectivity and making sure that your customers are always up and running. Then, as far as resilience is concerned, we all know about the harsh environments that we faced with, be it power surges, storms, and those kind of things. So that's why we built our devices very resilient to those harsh environments at the end of the day. Then, yes, we welcome all those external LTE routers for VoIP and data services that you would want to connect to an on-premise PBX. So we cater for those, and then as well as redundancy. So if you've got a fiber connection that's connecting as a SIP connection, you're able to then take the telecom side of things, so your analog or your ISDN or even your LTE services, and use those as a redundancy link to your fiber connection, your SIP connection, as it were. Then last but not least, survivability. So as some of us do know, or hopefully all of us do know, about 3CX high availability option via the enterprise license, where you can actually leverage off a wonderful enterprise license where you make use of two sections of the enterprise license. One is an active part of the license, and one is a passive part of the license. So you can have two PBXs running, two on-site PBXs running at the same time, and if one of them fails, the other one will kick into place within about 6 minutes. And that is a wonderful way of keeping your customers up and running. Mostly we found that around call center environments that people would want to deploy that. Then let's look at service and support. Very important, because as we know, if you don't have the service and support behind your product, you shouldn't really be in the industry. So Far South Networks is a designer and original equipment manufacturer. We basically provide the embedded software platform, which is serviced by Far South, as well as a software ecosystem for updates. So whether your system is needing updates for necessary changes on Ethernet or any of the IP infrastructure or anything like that pertaining to connectivity and a solid connection, we handle the ecosystem for those updates. And then also, lastly, to say that the Far South provides direct support to SciTech from our side. So we support our product wholeheartedly. Okay. Then let's look at the product maintenance. We have an online sales training that we provide for our users, which gives you 7 modules. And each one of those modules has multiple choice questions. And that provides you the ability to understand our product fully. And then we also provide an advanced training session after that as well. Online technical training, we implore you as much as possible to go through the basic, intermediate, and advanced training on 3CX. And that will just be a building platform in taking you further into our next technical training session, which will basically give you more of an insight into our product, into the Far South 3CX PBX appliance, and how the various tools, as we'll see also in later slides, how that basically can be managed, how that can be used to enhance your experience of using our product. And then, yes, with regards to us being a OEM, we basically have the product service via RMA procedure, where you book in your devices and we service them for you from there. We also offer a 1-year hardware warranty on all our devices, and that is purchased off the bat. And then we also offer extended warranties as well. Okay, so let's look at the product range. And to kick us off, I'd love to hand over to Grant, who's going to be discussing our Gateway collection. Thanks, Grant.
Thanks, Clint. Yeah, this is a really quick introduction to the gateways, although they're obviously not insignificant. But you will hear more about the different models to come. Although suffice to say that the gateway range of our products, in fact, will map across all the different hardware platforms that you'll see in subsequent slides. The product line, essentially competes by and large in the same space as the Pattons and the Baronets of this world. Just a run through of the essential features and services, as many of these IP-enabled devices will have open internet interfaces like LTE. It's very important for these devices to have a secure firewall router at the ground floor. And on top of that, we also have an application for which manages brute force hack events, specifically conducting blacklisting on those kind of events. So very important, obviously, gateways, the security aspects. Thereafter, as we keep mentioning, various product models will support a mixture of both PSTN and ISDN interfaces for connecting to the telco, and obviously conversion to voice over IP, the gateway's key function. And in our case, we support the SIP protocol. We don't go back as far as H323. That's not an available option in the SIP gateway range. It's SIP, and we can translate all those telco voice calls over PSTN and ISDN to SIP over Ethernet, LTE, or Wi-Fi. You've got to play with it to believe it, but there's obviously we like to market an extremely flexible call routing mechanism for enacting a very diverse range of call routing scenarios. You can translate VoIP to SIP based on number prefix. You can have various failover scenarios should SIP trunk A go down over your fiber. You can reroute over LTE. If that goes down, reroute over your ISDN link. There's no reason, if you're using our gateways, where the customer should not have connectivity. And lastly, as a cherry on the top, all our SIP gateways by default provide call recording service. That call recording, as you would imagine, sits embedded in storage on the boxes, which is a native service. But we also offer through a cloud service a facility to connect and translate your call recordings to a GDPR compliant storage facility. So your customers using our SIP gateways can actually also be offered a GDPR compliant call recording service in the cloud, which makes it scalable, over the years of the operation. And that's it. The next slide you'll see from Clint will show you more about all the different models and in his case, specifically the 3CX functionality. Thanks, Clint.
Thanks, Grant. Yeah, I'm going to spend a bit of time on this slide because it's quite important to understand our models. But just to indicate from what Grant has said, there's different models to our gateways. So if you look at the Wonderbox Uno, the Wonderbox Duo, Comics 10, and Comics 20 are all available in our gateway variants. So let me start basically on this slide with just indicating to you the Far South 3CX approved hardware products. And this is indicated by the various models, as I said before, but also the simultaneous calls, the amount of users that you can go up to, maximum users, and then the connectivity with regards to each one of these models as well. So let's start on the newest model that we have, that we launched at Far South Networks, is our Wonderbox Micro, our little baby PBX, supporting up to 16 concurrent calls, and then a maximum of up to 25 users. The connectivity on this device supports 2 ports of Ethernet connectivity, and that is, as you well guessed it, it's for purely voice over IP connection. Then we look at our other 2 smaller models, but a bit bigger than the Micro. We're looking at the Wonderbox Uno and the Wonderbox Duo. So both of them basically go up to 32 simultaneous calls, and then up to a maximum of 50 users. It supports 2 Ethernet ports, Wi-Fi capabilities built in via an AP, and then also analog or PRI connectivity on the devices itself. So let's look also at why Wonderbox Uno and why Wonderbox Duo. Well, specifically because the Wonderbox Uno has a 4-port trunk card that is built into the device, as you can see here. And then the Duo has 2 of those 4-port trunk cards built into the device as well. The other difference between the 2 is that the Uno is not rack mountable, whereas the Duo is rack mountable. And that is evident by the little tabs that basically go onto the unit itself that allows you to mount it into a rack. That doesn't mean that you can't mount the Uno. It just means that you need a little rack to place it onto, and it will fit perfectly in the customer's premises. Let's move on to the Comics 10s, more of the heavyweights in our range. Those basically on the Comics 10 side support up to 64 simultaneous calls, and then up to 250 users maximum on those devices. It supports 4 Ethernet 4 Ethernet ports, and then you can basically add analog or PRI connectivity onto the Comics 10 units. Then the last one, basically, we have more of the heavier load PBX, which is the Comics 20. This supports up to 256 simultaneous calls, up to 1,000 users maximum, and then only supports Ethernet connectivity. So that's only for voice over IP connectivity or SIP connectivity on that device itself. But as you can see, there's 2 devices listed there. So the top device, the bottom device is the Comics 20. The top device is a device that we call a ITA. That basically supports the analog and the PRI and various other ports to connect to with regards to the PBX range. But I'll move on to the next slide, and Grant can give you more information of the ITA and its usefulness in the market.
Awesome, thanks, Clint. Yeah, so ITA stands for Intelligent Telephony Adapter, and it almost goes back to the roots of our developments. Essentially, like the quotes there state, it's like you would envisage a telecoms line card, like if you classically had a line card in a rack system, and you could slot these into a black plane. This is a telecoms line card in a box, and you can fit a whole range of telephony ports in them. But the beauty of it is it connects via a single Ethernet port through LAN infrastructure to any of your Wonderbox or Comex PBXs. So essentially, through an Ethernet interconnect, you can extend numerous analog and ISDN ports to any of those existing boxes you saw on the previous slide, essentially allowing you to expand more telephony ports beyond those available in those models. It's an Ethernet infrastructure, so it's very expandable, distributed. In any one of these ITAs, one can support up to 24 analog RJ11 connectors. So those can be FXS or FXO. FXS to the old SLT or POTS handsets, the old analog handsets. FXO to the PSTN, as well as that these devices can support up to 4 primary rate ISDN. So a great way of offering telco expansion, reusing infrastructure. So wonderful for hotels where you've got all this existing infrastructure that wants to be that maybe want to be reused. Great for mines, as we've seen in South Africa, because our FXS ports can drive 5-kilometer lines to the handsets. And also, great in governments and parastatals for similar reasons for infrastructure reuse, where you still need a very strong hybrid type of model. And on the next slide, just to give you a picture of how big you can build these systems up. This was a little snapshot of a hotel in Geneva, Switzerland, where in the specific instance, if you know Harry Potter, the site looked like Hogwarts. It was almost a national monument, and the reseller there wasn't able to reconduit Cat5 Ethernet based IP phones into all the rooms. They really needed to reuse all the existing infrastructure was there. So it was a great opportunity to support them in the installation of one of our larger Comex 20s and up to 17 ITAs, building out well over 400 analog extension ports in one system. So great way of reusing existing, great way of offering huge cost savings to that infrastructure. Thanks, Clint. Yeah, so just a quick snapshot, just pictures always worth more than 1,000 words. As you can imagine, just wanted to present a couple of simple pictures of flesh out, how you can imagine some simple sample packages of, in this case, small office solution, quick and easy installation, Wonderbox Micro there in the picture. One can extend user voice facilities via DEC phones or your classic 3CX mobile app or soft client, web client on laptops. And in this case, connecting simply via an existing fiber router, for example, giving you between 4 and 16 SIP trunks to your VoIP provider. And at an entry-level cost, the 3CX standard package is almost no cost in that environment, but obviously can still take upgrades to the professional package and enable call center and call recording and a whole lot more. So this would just be a very simple, small office, simple to install and service small office solution. The next slide, thanks. Yeah, this would be a more traditional environment now where you have obviously LAN-based a range of IP phones, maybe some entry-level IP phones for general users, some couple of executive phones for your managers, and a switchboard operator. Very easily to order provision through the 3CX application. Again, connect through your broadband router, and in the Wonderbox micro case, again, sort of up to 16 concurrent calls over that system. And finally, yeah, a little bit of a hybrid environment where you might have, as you can see here, more a Wonderbox Duo. So this device can support up to 8 telco lines. So in this case, you can see on the top left, perhaps where the customer might still retain some 4 PSTN lines. That would be your FXO ports, or perhaps an ISDN line, your PRI. And on the top right, you might then also still have a couple of fax machines or some analog handsets. You obviously in the Wonderbox Duo can still have up to 50 IP handsets, and naturally, as in all IPPBXs, some SIP trunks to your SIP provider. And in this case, obviously, it's great to have the redundancy between PSTN and SIP should the customer need it.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Grant. That gives us a more clear indication of where we can use our PBXs in the industry. And yeah, very informative. It gives me great pleasure to actually look at our Far South 3CX appliance, give it a bit of a under the hood. You know that normally, look, most guys do this. I'm sorry if there's ladies present, but guys generally tend to do this. If they get their first car, they get their first motor vehicle, everybody wants to look, everybody wants to see, ooh, wonderful. And then the guys, the first thing they want to do is open the open the hood of the car so that they can see the engine. They can see how this thing works, this beast works. So this is what I'm giving you guys, basically a look under the hood, as it were, to view our Far South 3CX appliance. And as you can see, basically, we are looking at the 3CX software, which comes embedded into all our PBX systems. And then also the TDM gateway, which enables analog and ISDN ports to be connected to the 3CX PBX software, as indicated over here by these ports, and that is the TDM gateway. Then we're looking also at providing a bit of tools, networking tools for our engineers. So your engineers are able to go into the Comma UI, and they're able to then do and perform networking configuration via the Ethernet ports. So it gives them the ability to control the Ethernet ports, and then giving a more solid indication of what they are able to do within 3CX PBX. Okay. Then we move over to the product mechanicals. So now we want to show you more about the devices that we have made. Let's look at the Wonderbox Micro PBX. So from the front view, you can see there's 2 LAN ports. So we have a gigabit Ethernet port, and we have a fast Ethernet port as well. So this is basically for LAN or WAN capabilities, and that's on the front view. Notice I ignored a bit of the HDMI. That's simply because, who knows, that is part of Far South's wonderful features that might come out soon. We'll just wait to see for the next webinar. So we've got connectivity as far as a 5-volt, 3-amp power supply. And then the rear view, we basically have LEDs, just showing you the usual power indication or the charging indication, as well as the on and off switch, as a reset switch, and then the USB ports that we use for console access to the devices as well. Okay. And then we're looking at the same Wonderbox Micro that we saw earlier, except this is the SBC featured device. And on this device, we have the 3CX SBC software embedded into this device. And then that can service up to 30 IP endpoints. So 30 IP phones with 400 BLF subscriptions. Contains a single Ethernet port, one USB, and then 16 gigabytes of storage. The 3CX SPC version 16 software is embedded into this device. Also contains a non-commercial license. So the SPC, if you might not be familiar with the session border controller from 3CX, this is basically used in conjunction with a single PBX at the main site, and you want to connect the branches to that main site. This is the ideal way to put an SPC down and connect those IP endpoints on each branch to the main PBX via the SPC. Let's look at the Wonderbox Uno. Like I said previously, the Wonderbox Uno basically supports a 4-port trunk card. And on those 4-port trunk card, there's various variations of the way you can put in different cards into that slot. Let me just mention the 4BRI and the LTE variant is only available on our gateways and not on our 3CX PBX appliance. However, you can have a combination of 2 FXOs, 2 FXSs in one card. You can have a full card with 4 FXOs only, and then you can have 4 FXSs as well. Then even this little tiny device, you are able to fit in basically 2 PRIs or a single PRI, and it gives you additional LAN port or Ethernet port connectivity as well. On the rear view, you'll notice there's a Wi-Fi port over here. So that's wireless AP to connect into the device as well as you'll see the LTE antennas that's indicated on both sides for LTE connectivity. We have the micro SD slot for the micro SD cards, as well as the Ethernet ports, 2 Ethernet ports that it supports. And like I said previously as well, with regards to the USB connectivity, that is the console port that you're able to use to connect to the device. Then on the Duo, as we said, 2 trunk card slots that's available on this device, and that can be various cards that you put in there. If you want to have FXSs and you want to have FXOs or various combination of PRI or whatever the case may be that suits your customer. That's the wonderful way that and makes it more versatile in the market space. Then also just to mention that over and above these cards that we are able to connect to this device, if you've got a customer that's wanting, say, 24 or 48 FXS ports to be connected onto the PBX as well, we also have the ITAs that can comfortably connect to each one of our Wonderboxes and our Comex devices, with the exception of the Wonderbox Micro, because remember I told you that is a purely voice over IP solution. So on this device we see the power, yet again, micro SD, 2 Ethernet ports, and then we've got the USB for console connectivity. Okay. Then we move on to the Comex 10. So the Comex 10 basically supports up to 4 gigabit Ethernet ports. You can see there's a dedicated console port for connectivity into the device as well as an earth lug for extra protection. And we support various options as far as your line card configuration. Yet again, may I remind you that the BRI card slots and the LTE card slots are simply for the gateway configuration. And then, as you can see there's 4 slots available. The current cards that's in there is the 4 times PRI connectivity. So you can have your PRI connections, you can have your FXO connections alongside that, or FXS if needs be as well.